Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology. On this podcast, we talk about theories and cultures and spirituality and religion and all sorts of different topics. I wanted to touch on kind of this topic about silencing and censorship, kind of along those lines. I know they're not exactly the same thing, but just in general, it's something that I've seen come up a lot, and it's usually something that for me has almost naturally become or maybe not naturally. I think I've learned to view it as a warning sign. So censorship can be anything from, putting a black box or, bleeping out audio words or phrases that don't meet the criteria expected, that don't meet some kind of standards that somebody along the lines thought that those standards shouldn't be crossed and shouldn't be heard by others or visually seen. So that's where you see those kind of sticker looking things, or things that are fuzzed out, or those black boxes where it's just a black area, or things kind of even skewed a bit to sound like this is what is true, but kind of manipulated. I don't know if that's considered censorship, but it's kind of along the same lines with you see it with propaganda and just kind of an agenda to sway opinions towards one way or another. It's kind of within that realm. And silencing more so authorities or somebody, but it's usually authorities, some form of an authority figure, whether it's a teacher or a nurse or a parent or a minister or the founder of an organization. There's somebody who's saying what was I even trying to say? With silencing, they're basically pressuring somebody, usually who's already spoken up about something. They're pressuring them to stop. Usually there's not silencing before something occurs, but there is kind of that threat that you will be silenced with some types of groups or information that they would like to keep to themselves. So usually the reason why these things spark a red flag for me is because I start to think, well, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to hide? Why would somebody prefer someone else's content, meaning someone else's viewpoint or opinion or creative expression? Why would somebody else prefer that to be altered from the original content to meet some kind of standard, right? Especially usually because the people who are creating that content don't fully believe or follow the standard that they're breaking according to whatever the other group thinks, right? So usually it's a conflict already of ideas, and Then also when it comes to, the silencing aspect, I ask myself, why can't they tell us about that? The reason why I gravitate a little more heavily towards things that, are being silenced is usually because, I always get interested in it. I'm like, okay, like this is an aspect of a culture that I don't know, or this is, a type of experience of a certain group of humans that I don't really know, or, this is a certain type of religion that I've come across that I've never really heard about any of this stuff. It piques my interest. And so I'm like, okay, let me delve into it. And then, sometimes that's where I start seeing more and more that somebody's telling people that it's not okay to talk to outsiders in some form or another about some secret things. And usually those secret things are almost always negative. Usually it exposes people's weird ideas to control and manipulate groups of people. So it usually exposes some kind of a leader's faulty or some leaders like faulty viewpoints of how they're trying to use that false idea system to brainwash and do things like that to other either individuals or groups of people. Usually that sticks out to me. It also sticks out to me because it's like, usually when someone is trying to silence another party, it's because they have a difference of opinion, right? Usually people aren't trying to silence somebody who thinks exactly the same way as they do, and believes exactly the same way and wants to live exactly the same way. Usually the silencing is when someone's exposing things that someone else feels like need to be kept hidden. And I always ask myself, well, what do they believe needs to be kept hidden? If all these other people are following it, why is there all this information that's so hard to come by? Now, I feel like there are certain groups that, because I know about them, I use them as examples a lot in my scenarios, and I'm not trying to talk badly about Adventists or Amish or Mennonites or whatever. But if you take, for example, Amish groups, there is definitely a lack of footage of their services. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has the right to have their religion, just exposed to the general public. That there's not supposed to be any privacy in their religious meetings and all this kind of stuff. I don't think cameras are always appropriate, but it always does kind of, especially in this day and age, it is kind of something that to me is a little hard to understand. Why don't we see any footage of this, right? There was an LDS, the Church of Latter-day Saints, Mormon temple service that got exposed. Somebody video recorded segments of it and posted long segments online of something. You're never supposed to record this. And it's interesting because I remember when I was meeting with Mormons, because I was like, whatever, it's like free classes, why not hear from people firsthand who have been studying how to talk about this religion? Sure, I'll meet with these elders and we'll talk, and we'll meet every week, and we'll I'll discuss their book and all this kind of script stuff. It wasn't the Bible we were talking about. We were talking about the Book of Mormon. And I think I read it, if not the majority of it. And we discussed like different parts every week. I told them what I was reading and my explanation of it. And they usually told me that I was kind of wrong. And I was like, well, whatever. I don't really know what this is. I wasn't like studying it, but I was like reading it, like a one-time read of something I'd never read before. So of course I kind of took their explanation as, oh, I'm wrong. I'm interpreting this in this way, and they're not. Like, I remember there was something about the Nephites. I can't remember what it was. But I remember, I don't even know if that's where it was talking about the Nephites, but I remember from my own memory, and this could be so flawed because this was probably back in like 2005 or something, so I really don't know. But, I think I read something about the Nephites. They were talking about like dark people or something like that, like dark skin or something like that. I mean, I could be so wrong, but I remember asking them about it, and they're like, I don't remember it saying anything like that. And I'm like, okay. But this was before, like I wasn't like looking things up digitally, and this book was like new to me, and I was like, whatever, it's a free book and you're going to teach me about it, and they come by every week for free, and we talk about it for like almost an hour, and it was fun. I had nothing else to do. I like to just meet different people from different cultures. I did find it interesting. The missionaries were like young, and so was I. So we were like all like in our 20s or so. So it was kind of nice to just meet some 20-year-olds that were around. And then I kind of realized, oh, like these people aren't like befriending me. Like these aren't people that I can like call up and we can go do stuff together. Like they really just only want to talk about their religion. Like this isn't, like this isn't like a two-way street, like, and but I was just still kind of like interested in it. I remember I went to I've talked about this before, I went to their learning center where they showed a video, and like I got to learn about it. There was stuff that I was kind of like aware of because I wasn't I noticed how they dressed, that they always dressed like in their shirt and like nice pants and stuff. And then I also noticed that when they were because it was far on another part of the city, and I went to and from with them, and they provided the transportation and they drove me there. It was guys that I was meeting with outside at a park up a hill, and then to go to this learning center. I remember all of a sudden here comes this lady who's about my age. I don't know if it was one or two ladies, but they just showed up, and, once they got there, I got into the car with the women, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't even know these people. I didn't even know that they had women. I never met any of the women. Like, I knew that there were Mormon women, but I mean, I didn't know that they had a role. Like, I didn't, I'd never come across them, so I didn't really know, what the heck was going on. But, yeah, there were the women, and then stuff like that I would observe where I was like, this is different. Like, I can't go in the car with the guys that I've been talking to every single week, like they have to get like a whole different person because of gender. And so that to me was interesting as well. But once they told me that I couldn't go into the temple, I was a little bit like, why? Like, because this was like in the middle of the week, in the afternoon in the middle of the week. So, it's not like they had, a church right then. I don't know when their services honestly happen in the temples, but they kind of started explaining that, like, you already have to be like a member, and you already have to be, have permission after seeing the bishop. The bishop has to give you permission to go. And I was like, well, how do we talk to the bishop and get permission to go? And they're like, no, you have to be like in the religion. Like they didn't say exactly you have to be in the religion, but I kind of eventually got the idea that like I'm not at the level where I can go. And I was just kind of like, well, that's already weird that there's like some strange secrecy. To me, that's weird when it comes to like a religion. If there's some kind of secret aspect to it that you don't really know about, to me that's always like okay, like that's weird. I'm not saying it is always bad, but I'm just saying it leads me to think something's being hidden. And when things are being hidden, sometimes it's hard to tell, is it hidden because it's not for your age range yet? Is it hidden because you need to actually learn more to fully appreciate this experience? But anytime somebody starts saying like, oh, like, it's hidden, we can't tell you, I'm usually kind of turned off at that point, because I'm like, okay, you're hiding something for a negative reason. Now, I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with their temple services. I don't know. But I feel like whatever the process might be that leads you to be able to have to go, or that leads you to be able to go to the temple service, might involve some kind of manipulation process of, having to keep people in line with certain rules so that they'll be eligible to go. Usually that's where those types of things stem from. It sounds like in some Amish congregations, you can't do communion if you're shunned. And the communion, according to some beliefs, is what's going to make sure that, you go to heaven. If Jesus comes when you haven't had communion, then you're not going to be saved. Your salvation is dependent on having communion, and it's a very public thing. Everyone would probably know if you were excluded from communion, because people will know who's shunned, who they can't be talking to. People will know who, didn't get permission to go to communion, because they won't be at communion. And so if you're not following all the rules, you're not allowed to go to communion in some groups. And, the rules are what keep you in line with what the church expects. And if you're not doing what they expect, then they penalize you, isolating you from the community and things like that. So, I think it's interesting that, there is stuff like censorship. There is stuff like silencing, or, the secrecy and all that kind of stuff. It all just kind of makes me wonder. But to me, I don't know, I could be wrong, but to me, they're kind of warning flags. I'm like, if you can't just be straight up with me and give me all the information, up front, then why would I join into some group? I mean, I know there is, I think a lot of humans do like that, secret group. You're an elite member, everyone kind of likes that. You even see it when people get like credit cards or AAA or whatever. Like, you want that special treatment to be in a special, higher, better group. You want that metal card. You want that card, you want to have access to like a card that, other people don't have access to. Because you're doing something better, or like there's something that you're doing that's better, that's leading you to be able to get access to that. So it shows like some level of success with certain things when you're getting like elite access to stuff. But I don't really think that's a good approach to take with religion, or just your daily whatever, if you're committed to like a daily type of ritual and traditions. I don't think there needs to be like secrecy involved in the people who have higher up positions. I don't think that they need to be hiding things, because even if they're hiding things that are something even as innocent as like a type of a service or like a thing like that, with that secrecy and with that silencing kind of process and the censorship processes comes, when there is an abusive situation, that's where people are kind of getting more and more manipulated, because there's this secret thing that general society can't have access to. And so a lot of times, especially in religions, this happens, and cults, this happens, they use that secret kind of area to kind of do whatever the heck negative stuff that they want to be doing. I'm not saying that temple services are like that or whatever. I'm just saying, like, usually it's like covered up by some form of secrecy or silencing that like keeps people from revealing what's going on in their lives, and it keeps them away from authority figures who could help them. It keeps them away from outside society that could help them, that could like even be aware that something might be wrong. Like one Amish guy was saying that like the drivers would be the outside people that would be of use. And so he was saying like he's kind of tried to reach out to some drivers that drive the Amish around, because the Amish don't have cars. Most of them don't have cars. Most groups don't have cars. And so if they need to go somewhere, they have to hire a driver. And, these drivers are usually just like any old person who's able to drive, which technically usually isn't Amish. So they hire drivers, to come pick them up and take them shopping, take them places, whatever, if they don't want to use the buggy or whatever other transportation they might have available. So that was something that I kind of thought about, where I was just kind of like, yeah, that's a little weird. It's kind of a little weird, but that's kind of where my mind goes when there's this weird stuff coming up where it's like, okay, like, why is this allowed? Because nobody speaks up. But, yeah, it keeps people from speaking up, basically. But, yeah, I'm not gonna vamp on this too much. I gotta go eat a late lunch. I got some chicken calling my name. So, with that, I'm gonna sign off of here. But thanks for listening.